This could change the game completely. Let's get into it. Good afternoon, my myelin missing magnificent marvels. I'm Cliff, and this is Life with MS. Today, I have a really interesting research report, and I'm going to tell you where it came from. Basically, when we had our kid, I got fat. And what I noticed is, even though I wasn't diagnosed with MS at that point, the extra weight was making life very, very difficult. And the only way I found the extra weight was basically riding my bicycle over speed bumps. And I realized, wow, I feel like I have sandbags around my gut. Now, what I have noticed over the years since being diagnosed is if I get a few pounds overweight or 10 pounds overweight, it makes my symptoms a lot worse. And while this episode was originally going to be about inflammation, it got me thinking last night. Is there anything to these new weight loss drugs that could help us lose weight if we have MS? And what are the effects? And what I discovered in my research is that there is a bunch of research happening right now, studies being done about the effects of these weight loss drugs on multiple sclerosis. And this gets really, really interesting. So initially, people were taking these drugs to help slim their waistlines. What we decided as humans, and if you're not from Earth, humans do weird things like this, we injected these things into little mice, which are not humans. They're like these little furry animals that for some reason we think are kind of like humans when it comes to medical research. I suspect it's because of cost and availability, because we're shallow like that. And these specific mice were genetically modified to have a version of a disease called multiple sclerosis. Now, it's not exactly like the human version. It's the rodent version. So they have little rodent canes and little rodent walkers, and they bump into walls like us humans with MS and all that stuff. Maybe they don't have the canes and the walkers, but I've seen them bump into walls. But they're pretty good at not bumping into walls because they have like whiskers and stuff. But I don't know. Do they get optic neuritis? I have no idea. And when the researchers treated these mice with these weight loss drugs, something very interesting started to happen. They began to experience remyelination in their central nervous systems. Now, if you're not familiar with it, multiple sclerosis is a demyelination disease. That is, takes the insulation away from your nerves, and basically the nerves start shorting out. The signals don't get where they're supposed to go, and it causes havoc. There's all kinds of things that actually result of that, a whole bunch of different types of symptoms. But in the mice, it showed remyelination, which is awesome. Now, these drugs, by brand name, Wegovy and Ozempic, and I think there are a few others now, target the GLP-1 hormone. And what this basically does is it tells your brain that your stomach is full and you don't want to eat anymore. And it also slows down digestion, so it feels more full. So Ozempic got its fame for treating diabetes, while Wegovy got its fame for helping with weight loss. And now you're probably asking yourself,
but Cliff, what does this have to do with MS other than just the mouse models?
And that's an excellent question. As I mentioned before, and we know this from studies, obesity is kind of a party pooper for MS. And obesity is also thought to be a risk factor for developing multiple sclerosis. And it also makes the disease course a lot rockier, and I've experienced that firsthand. So the thinking in some of these studies is if the drugs do nothing more than just help with weight loss, then they'll be beneficial to somebody with MS. But they're doing more than that. And while these drugs could be helping more MS patients fit into skinny jeans, which I don't know if that's good or bad. I would not look good in skinny jeans. I wear cycling shorts, and that's punishment enough on society. I can't, okay, maybe it's not about me. Now, get this, there was one study that covered 20 years of FDA adverse reports, and it found an inverse association, meaning people taking the GLP-1 medications were less likely to report multiple sclerosis compared to other people on other weight loss drugs. It's like MS was trying to avoid them at the pharmacy, which I wish it had done that for me. And then there are other parts of this that are very interesting, and we're talking about anti-inflammatory and neuroprotective powers.
Oh, neuroprotection, yes!
So the science and research community is really buzzing about this anti-inflammatory and neuroprotective properties that they've seen in these studies, but they're not really sure what the how is. Like, how is it doing it? But the thought is that these drugs are actually calming down the overzealous immune systems of those of us with multiple sclerosis. Like, kind of like, calm down, man. You just need to chill. Chill pill. Chill pill. Don't be a crazy immune system right now. Just take it easy. And then there's the blood-brain barrier, where things can get into the brain that shouldn't be there. And that's because those of us with MS have kind of a leaky brain barrier. And that kind of goes with me having kind of a leaky bladder when it's hot. maybe this is just kind of a leaky disease. The research with these GLP-1 drugs has shown that there might actually be a strengthening of that barrier, and that would make it to where those naughty little immune cells could not make their way into the brain and wreak havoc like they have been doing. Now, keep in mind, none of this is medical advice. This is just research I found. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a healthcare provider. I'm a bald guy on YouTube doing his own armchair research and having a lot of fun doing it because the research now coming out is just absolutely fascinating. And I just wanted to share it with you. So if you have questions about this kind of stuff, don't refer to me. Talk to your care team because they know what they're doing most of the time. Am I going to run out and ask for a prescription of this stuff in hopes it's going to help with my MS? No, this stuff is still very, 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 very early in the game, and we don't have all the information. Plus, the side effects, there's always side effects with all this stuff, and I'm already just not a huge fan of side effects. If you watch my channel, you know that. I'm between DMTs right now, disease-modifying therapies, because of the side effects of the first 2 DMTs that I've tried. They were awful, and though while I think they stopped the progression of my multiple sclerosis, I couldn't actually deal with the side effects. One of them being nonstop respiratory infections, and the other one having an effect called the crap gap. That's a whole nother story. And while the trailer for this movie looks very promising, it could end up being like Waterworld, where it's just kind of so bad it's good, and maybe we'll learn something from it. Who knows? So the initial side effects people have actually noticed in small group studies is basically vomiting, constipation, diarrhea, blah, 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 all the fun stuff you love and know. And then there's things like low blood pressure and kidney stones. Ooh, those are fun. I've had one of those. Not fun. And I actually was in an MRI doing the shaky thingy when it broke loose. Can you believe that? That was crazy. Additionally, there have also been fainting spells, so that's not good. And most importantly, they don't know if there's any actual negative interactions with MS drugs because let's be honest, a lot of us are on these MS drugs, and throwing something else on this that improves the blood-brain barrier when we're trying to get past the blood-brain barrier with our MS drugs, what could that do? And there's no studies on that yet. So all this is just very far out in the universe, and we've got to just bring it in and figure out what all this is about. I have linked all the studies I've read and referenced in this below in the description. I encourage you, if you have questions, to talk to your healthcare providers because if they're in the know, they'll definitely have answers to this stuff. But if you really want to nerd out like I like to, check out the studies linked below because they're fascinating. And I also use and try to use only trusted information from reputable sources. So the bottom line here is it's another area of really interesting research, and it's on drugs that are already out there, Ozempic and Wegovy, and how they might help with remyelination and also other issues with multiple sclerosis. And the thing that's really nice is these are drugs that are established and for the most part already have their risk factors identified. And that means that time to market for something like MS could be a lot faster than starting from ground zero. So I see it like this. Maybe at one point I put on a few pounds and it becomes very difficult to exercise and lose that weight because I'm having issues with my mobility. But you take this drug and that drug, and it helps with the remyelination. So you get your mobility back. It makes it that much easier to exercise. And suddenly you start shedding the weight, and then you start shedding the drugs. That would be awesome. Please like, share, and subscribe if you liked this episode. The community is awesome. You guys are just fantastic. I know I say this every single time, but I totally mean it. I love what we're doing here. We're building an awesome resource of information. And now, time to get back to work. I'm Cliff. This is Life with MS, and I'm out.